When you're a boy and you move in a company of men, you have to be prepared to kill a man. Know how to do it and really know that you will do it in order to not be interfered with. If you knew you would kill, other people sensed it and very quickly left you alone. My name is Tyler Fisher, and my presentation will be over some subcultures within America. I draw on an academic presentation or academic journal in which I will shape the rest of my presentation with. This article is by Gerard Taratz Espinoza. Espinoza delves into correlations and idiosyncrasies of students in violence and how the violence has had an effect on academic performance. Espinoza also describes what margin of people are more likely to be affected by violence. So in the article, Espinoza basically details certain children living in certain areas in the communities, in certain communities, poverty-stricken communities, and these students are directly impacted by crime, in which they have to develop a sense about themselves and develop strategies in order for them to maneuver through these communities. As a result, some of these kids get into violence themselves and or omit going to school in totality. So they don't go to school whatsoever. The next part of this presentation, I want to detail my experience. And I grew up in Oklahoma, in a small part of Oklahoma on the northwest side, in which I was plagued by these same situations. Basically, you had to maneuver yourself in a way that people knew not to mess with you. And so if you grew up in that area, and by all means, I wasn't raised in the ghetto or in the hood, a very, I guess ghetto is the best word, a ghetto area. But basically, there were certain signs and symbols that you recognized in another individual that showed you not to test them. Some of these instances include sagging, colors that showed you were an affiliate of a gang, many things of this nature that showed opposing people, mostly males, that you weren't to be tested or you weren't to be messed with. Unfortunately, because these things that were learned, these scripts that were learned from people in that neighborhood or older siblings or older students, the kids ended up shifting and doing these things because they thought they were cool. And so they thought they were cool initially, and then after that, they ended up developing these scripts to help them get through society and get through the subculture of being at a predominantly Black or predominantly African American school. So fast forward, so I involved myself a little bit in some of these things, but more so, I stayed away from a lot of the violence. And even though I had friends, there's a time where I went to school and two of my friends were opposing members of the school's gang. So the school that I went to, the middle school that I went to, most of the kids were from a particular gang. So it was heavily populated with this gang. My friends, on the other hand, were the opposition. And so we had to portray ourselves to be a little tougher than we were already because we were in, I guess, or you could say, behind enemy lines. This led to a little bit of conflict. I ended up getting into 2 fights, and my mom said, we're, enough, we're getting out of here. So I transitioned from a predominantly Black school and went across Oklahoma into a predominantly white school, in which I learned that some of the habits that they had didn't correspond with the techniques and habits that I developed in order to survive where I was from. And some of these things included just conversation, little things in dialogue that may have involved asking, where do you live? Of course, this is the best way to ask, someone, where do you live? Where are you from? However, where I grew up, we would say, "Where do you stay at?" or "Where do you live at?" And when I would ask people at this predominantly white school that question, they looked at me and they were puzzled. And so I quickly learned that this wasn't the best way to communicate. I learned and I adapt. Also, at a time that I was going to this school, people were wearing more fitted and fitted, just tailored clothing, whereas I was wearing larger clothing, basically like the '90s look up into the late 2000s. Of course, I was in middle school, so I learned that you didn't always have to portray this look and this attitude everywhere you went, um, and everywhere you would go. You could shapeshift, I guess, or code switch. And so I learned to tailor my behaviors a little bit differently. And as a result, I'm graduating this year, 2 degrees, a minor in sociology. I had a couple of friends along the way who couldn't get out of that mindset, and unfortunately, they became stuck in that. And crazy enough, I had friends that I went to middle school with. My mom moved me to the predominantly white school where I met other guys who were from. We had commonalities because they were from smaller parts in their cities. One was from California, one was from Mississippi, but they had smaller. Um, they were from smaller cities and neighborhoods that dealt with the same things that I dealt with, and as a result, we formed a bond and we were, friends instantly. However, they were phenomenal athletes. They ended up getting full rides to college, but they didn't finish. I believe one went to jail. The other one is now full on gang member. And it's just full circle how everything comes back around. And my friends that I went to middle school with, or some of them are in the same boat. So that concludes my presentation, and it deals with some of the symbols and um, tactics that we use growing up to maneuver through school and just try not to be bullied. And I mentioned the Ernest Hemingway thing. It's important because you have someone who says, you have to put on this image and you have to know that you're going to kill somebody, or you have to feel, people have to feel that you're going to kill somebody in order for you to not be messed with. And so I thought that was a pretty unique quote, and that's why I went with it. Thank you.